Okay, here we go, folks. We're moving right along here into spring. That kind of feels good to say, doesn't it? My husband and I keep calling this the winter of our discontent. It's been a tough winter from multiple levels for us. Craziness. A lot going on in the class. I'm kind of feeling bad about how crowded I've gotten this thing looking, but hopefully you're still able to find everything. And as always, if you're having trouble finding something or having trouble grasping the meaning of what I'm talking about, please let me know. I want to make this as personable as possible. It's Wednesday, actually, it's Thursday today. No, it's Wednesday. My goodness, I'm kind of off. I'm actually recording this the week before. I've sent you an email. If you haven't responded to that, I'm going to be sending it later today, rather. But if you could respond to that email, I'm asking you about VoiceThread and to see how effective that was for you, to see if we want to use it again, and just to kind of fill you out on that in terms of its educational merit. And I saw a lot of you replied. That was kind of fun to watch come in, but I didn't reply back. I just wanted to see if that was valuable for you. If you haven't gone back in to listen to other people's ideas, this week might be a good week to do that, because as we're generating ideas for our wiki portfolio, that might be a place to grab more from. I also want to make sure that I'm clarifying that any idea that, sorry, hair on my face, that you throw out in like the VoiceThread or in a discussion board, if you want to bring that idea into your wiki, that's okay. And if maybe Amanda threw out an idea that you want to use and maybe modify a bit, go ahead and do that. Make it your own. Don't just do a copy paste, but this is what this is for. This is the creative space. This is the collaborative space that we're using. And the wiki then is the results of that. It doesn't have to be everything from scratch. Somebody really wisely, actually, and introspectively said that they're not sure that she wasn't sure she feels equipped or ready to create her own educational tools for the lessons she wants to write. And I'll say reflectively, as a teacher, that I think I've definitely gotten better at creating those things over the years, but I've also gotten better at finding things that are already created. And it is sort of a scaffolding process. We talk about scaffolding for our own learners, but we need scaffolding as any kind of learner, as adult learners, as future teachers. Start baby steps, find a really good resource, and then start imitating it and making it your own. But not everything has to be from scratch. Yeah, we talk about not wanting a whole canned curriculum, but borrowing the best parts from several things that are already created, that's your creative power and your editing power, right? And that's good stuff. So just wanted to give you that little pep talk as we get into this week. You'll also notice in the email that I'm going to be sending out that I finally have the videos on a disc, and hopefully we'll have those in the classroom soon, from the elementary teacher. Had a really funny writing experience with my youngest son, and I would put it up on the screen, but I think I'm just going to tell you about it. The teacher is obviously working, I'm going to pull the picture up of it that I have on my phone. The teacher is obviously working with argument, and she's working with first graders. This is the teacher you're going to see in the videos once I get them off the disc. And the prompt was, is your dad brave? Yes or no? They had to circle. How do you know? And then there's 2 blanks for them to fill in, and then illustrate, and there's a place for them to draw a picture. And so my son wrote, is your dad brave? He circled yes. How do you know? And he wrote, he played football, because my husband was a college athlete. And then it says, for the second answer, he can take down me. In other words, he can take me down like wrestling. And I thought that was hysterical, but I thought it was also a great way to get students at a very young age to write with a template and a prompt that is very structured for them, that's very in tune to what they're able to do as first graders. I also think sometimes our older kids need this kind of stuff, these little guided practices, right? So something to think about. It's a very simple worksheet, and if you're interested in that worksheet, email me or send me a message somehow, and I can try to get a hold of that actual worksheet for you from that teacher, because she's very helpful. Okay, I'm scrolling down, sorry to make you dizzy here, to the week that we're on. and we are finishing up March. I can't believe it. Okay, a couple things to look at. This is an article from Faculty Focus. I'll add the link to the class so that you can just go right to it from here. This is an online link that we're going to be reading this week. It's called the Instructor's Challenge. I chose it because I liked the emphasis on critical thinking. You know, I just showed you a baby steps, a first grader's attempt at writing opinion. But we also know students who are great at throwing opinions out there, but they don't really show a lot of critical thought. Maybe even college peers that we work with, right? Maybe even myself as I'm thinking about it. You know, I'm great to throw out an opinion, but does it really reflect my critical thinking? And how do we move students to that critical thinking, that higher up on the Bloom's model, right? Also from Faculty Focus, and I've said this before, Faculty Focus is actually articles that are targeted for college professors, but I believe that we can definitely adapt them for high school, most likely for junior high, and even some of these things if we're looking at our younger elementary students. And this is for looking for flippable moments in your class. We have a lot of buzz about flipping a class, and I'm hoping to get out to you a video of a teacher friend of mine who blends her class in a traditional school, but looking for ways to reach all students all the time. Huge task ahead of us. And so this is looking for, there are times that flipping makes more sense than others, and there are times that it doesn't, and this is looking at that. These, again, I'm thinking in terms of giving you, we talked a little bit about what to teach up to this point, but also in your mini lessons, thinking about how to teach it out. I believe Nat Atwell does a great job of talking about the traditional classroom and how she has made a traditional classroom into a very live and lively and engaged environment using workshops. But she doesn't really tap into using some of the technology pieces that we can bring in to put ourselves at more than one station. You know, in essence, maybe like recording a lesson ahead of time. So one of the stations in the classroom is a meeting lessons that's recorded so that I have time to work more one-on-one with students. A lot of you've really emphasized that in some of your reflections, how you really want to get, you know, down and dirty working directly with students on their writing. But that takes an incredible amount of time. How can you justify using class time for that? You know, let's be careful with using. I encourage you that you're going to be using time outside of class, but you don't want it to consume all parts of you, because you need some time to recalibrate every night and refresh so that you can go back in with your full game face the next day of class. I know this from teaching, that it can really suck you in, and it's going to be a careful balancing act. So these are things to think about in the how part. We know we're getting some ideas of what we want to teach. How is that going to look? Okay, so looking at all of that, discussion board this week, again on how. Look at that. Education theorists and practitioners, in other words, people who make all the writing about what writing should look like, and the people who put it into practice, putting that theory and practice piece together, talk about the importance of student-led instruction. This is a how thing. Student-led instruction, clear back to the early 1900s, even you could probably even push further before that. There were educational theorists who talked about engaging students through inquiry-based learning. And right now I'm losing the theorist off the top of my head, the philosopher who talked about that. He was studying young children and how they were so inquisitive, and why don't we just tap into that? How can this work? But also, you can add, how can you see this falling apart? At what limitations are there, but how can it also work out in your writing classroom? And then in your blog, we're going to brainstorm topics that might set a context for writing beyond opinion, kind of hooking on to this faculty focus, and engaging students' attention. Brainstorm activities that might help students collaborate and communicate about topics that are sticky in a way that is appropriate for their age and yet appropriately mature. I think that my downfall as an instructor has been to avoid some of the ugly topics because I don't want conflict in my class, but really in a structured environment, some of these topics might be, and you can name those. I'm not going to name the topics ahead of time, but what could you see being kind of touchy topics that students would have that need to talk about through their writing and through your class? They're going to come up in the inherent nature of writing. You're going to have to face some of these. Which ones are you going to tackle? Which ones are you going to say, you know what, not for this class? What considerations, what activities might set up for a safe and collaborative and communicative environment? I'll give you an idea just to throw out there. I said I wasn't going to give any topics, but I'm going to give you one just as a way to jump off. I had, this was for a college class, college writing class. We talked about gender issues in athletics. And I'm sure you know what all directions this could possibly go. And I had students brainstorm arguments that they already had or questions that they would like to discuss in regards to gender issues in athletics. Then they took their piece of scrap paper, folded it up, and threw it in the middle of the room. Everybody grabbed a paper that wasn't theirs and led off as a jumping off point. We did it several different ways. One way where they just wrote in response to it and kind of taped the topic to the top or rewrote it to the top and then passed it around so that everybody was talking about it, but it was a little bit more anonymous. In fact, I think we didn't even pass it. I think we threw that version then back into the pot and everybody grabbed something different the next time, and we kept adding to it and arguing back and forth. It was a little bit more anonymous, a little bit more safe. And then we shared out and opened it up to the room, and by that time people were more comfortable talking about these touchy issues. Or they just reported out what was on the sheet that they ended up with, and they didn't have to own it. They didn't have to say, I wrote this. They had to say, this is what was written, and then it brought up some conversation. So we were able to kind of protect people from their from being chewed up and spit out personally, and I was kind of facilitator in that, in trying to lead students towards productive conversation. So that's an older level idea, but some ideas to think about in addressing touchy issues. Political issues can be touchy too, something to consider. Okay, for a wiki, we're moving towards week 12, so this is for this week, next week, and the following week. Just to start thinking about using your 4 writing tasks that we've been working on, review the common core standards you are covering, break down the items of mastery you are hoping to achieve, and create 4 mini lessons in PowerPoint or other teaching out formats that you prefer, and consider how your lessons will engage and motivate students. I think we talked about this last week. So basically we're going to show how these lessons all fit together. We're trying to design some lesson plans, but I'm hoping to make it a little bit more practical than just a plan on a piece of paper. I want you to have some of the teaching tools ready and prepared. So that's what this is aiming for. How are you going to teach it out? It's the how time now. We talked about what, we're moving to how. Lots to think about, lots to consider. If you have questions on any level, please let me know. If you need more resources or if you found a great resource you want to share out, please do so. We'd love to hear from you in our discussion boards. And remember to reply to the email I'm going to send later today about the effectiveness or ineffectiveness of VoiceThread in your opinion. Have a great week, and again, keep the conversation going